All right, so what's up? Back on the podcast. Although the first time on this podcast, my guest was on my previous podcast last year. I think that was in May, but it was during I would say it was during the pandemic already. But another podcast, and he was doing different things then, and he is doing different things now, all the way from the States. He is taking up a Master of Science in Journalism with a specialization in sports media at Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism at Chicago. That's a mouthful, man. And this guy, speaking of mouthfuls, man, having a conversation with this guy, he'll always give you a lot of mouthfuls. Kagan Sagaw. Man, welcome
What's
to the
up?
pod.
It's been a minute, bro. Miss you.
Yeah, you moved to the States, so you left your corporate job and then you moved to the States. Let's go straight to it. Like, what was the timeline like here?
Okay, so I think we talked May 2020. I left my corporate job at in August of that year. Sorry, September of that year. And then I actually quit that job with the intention of going into sports in some capacity in the Philippines. Now, one of our mutual close friends, Micah, he and I talked about a month into me just being unemployed. I was supposed to just chill for the rest of 2020.
Yeah.
I had some savings and everything. And he just brought up the idea of him wanting to take sports management in the US in like 2 or 3 years. And I was thinking, I'm an American citizen. Why don't I just try and go ahead and do that?
Wow. It was from that conversation with Micah.
It was literally from that. I told him that when I was leaving. I told him that I said, like, why don't I try and do that? Because I wanted to do sports anyway. I am an American citizen. It's not going to be hard. I have nothing better to do right now. Might as well just give it a shot because it's still like within my lane. It's management. It's what we did, but it's doing it in sports. So I started applying in October, literally like a week after that conversation. I was really making my applications already. You have to reflect a bit, but
Yeah.
but yeah. And then, to be honest, as I was making my applications, I was almost done, like within like December. That was like 2 months in, and I was taking an online class on sports sports marketing with Northwestern University. And in the middle of that class, there was a speaker who's J.A. Adonde, who is the director of the sports media specialization of journalism at Northwestern. And that was the first time. And I know him. He's renowned ESPN reporter. And I was looking at him and I was just like, wait, this exists? Like, I can
This
do
type of
sports. I could do sports for without needing to do the management side and still have success.
Wait,
When I saw that,
sorry, when you mean sports, you can do sports but not the management side. What is it specifically that this J.A. Adonde guy, what does he do?
he was a writer. He's worked for the Washington Post. He's worked for the LA Times. He's worked for ESPN. He's done ESPN shows. He's been all around. He was on The Last Dance. Like
Okay, there you go.
He's that big. Like, he's a reporter, and I was like, I can do this. Like, kaya pala to. Like, this is an option. If I can study this. So I was like, I gave it a shot. I was like, what if I just apply? And it was so funny because you're usually supposed to take a GRE or a GMAT, so a standardized test. Because of COVID, those were waived, and I was allowed to apply. All the lucky breaks for me. And to be honest, I applied for four sports management schools and one journalism school. But I told myself, if I get in the journalism school, I'm gonna take this. That's the sign. And I didn't even tell anyone. I told my two sisters and my best friend, and that's it. I didn't tell my parents, nothing. And then all of a sudden, like 4 months later, this was like late April, I got accepted, and I was like, yo, this is it, like, for sure. And luckily my parents were super game for it.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the pivot.
Did you tell your parents when you got in? Was that the first time you ever mentioned that, hey, I'm thinking of studying in the States?
So that's a good question. Like, they knew I was applying for the States, but they thought I was going to do management. So the whole time they were thinking I was going to go to either New York or San Diego, depending on where I was going to study. But my application for Northwestern, my results were super delayed because of a COVID-related issue. So I had to tell my dad, like, 2 weeks before the results came out. I was like, I have to tell you something and all of that stuff. But luckily he was like saying that he's super happy with it, he's super okay with it. And yeah, it worked out. Like the moment I
Uh-huh.
got accepted, he was like, is that what you want? And I was like,
Game.
yeah, hell yeah.
You're 25 years old now, no?
Yeah.
Do you think that scenario, that medyo surprise, oh, I'm gonna move, I'm gonna, change my life, at least for the next few years, diba? Is that a conversation you think that would have been totally different if that happened like a year and a half ago, like who you were at that age before the pandemic? Or do you think like that's just how your family goes?
I think like if you're talking about it in the context of personally, I think the pandemic definitely changed it, like definitely changed my perspective. Like that's the reason
Uh-huh.
I quit my job in the first place. It wasn't necessarily to go to journalism, but it was
It was
to
like the
go to
first domino.
sports. Yeah. And I don't know if I would have quit my job that quickly. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to stay in my job, but I definitely say that the pandemic expedited that mindset and that process.
Uh-huh. When you say
Um,
expedited, does that mean sped up or?
Sped up, yeah, for sure. Like, because I quit in August. That was like what, 4 months into the pandemic. I mean,
Uh-huh.
at the time it felt long, but in
Well,
hindsight, diba,
di
it's
ba pala?
that's like, oh, that was just a start. But
Uh-huh.
no, for sure, like it really made me just be like, yup, this ain't it. And I think that happened for a lot of people. I mean, in
It
fact,
did.
here in the
It did.
US, I think there was a report by the New York Times the other day, or a big publication, that like it's
Mhm.
the most people who've quit their job in like decades.
And it's during
So
a pandemic pa, no?
yeah, exactly.
Wi-
That's why it makes people think.
Yeah, and that made me think that it's not like you can just assume that that statistic of how there are more people who left their jobs, the corporate jobs, that it's real because in the pandemic, you'd think I would my first expectation was, oh, it's gonna be hard to have a job. So if I do have a job, I have to hold on to this because I don't know what's gonna happen. But I feel like it's also with the people who could afford to make that choice, to make
Yeah,
the decision, that they really got to think. We really got to think of what is it that we
yeah,
really want to be doing. And like since you're kind of disconnected with the world, I feel like the worry of what other people will think, of what society expects you to do, parang medyo nabawasan since
yes,
it's just you naman thinking about this. Eh.
yeah.
So when you look at that decision
It's a
that
great point.
you made and how everything just kind of like, how does it look like now? Parang ito's like around a year in the making, this whole this move, at least for you. It's done. You were in the, I would say, the prototype of like ME, Ateneo grad, corporate job. Like there is that expectation to have that type of life. But now looking back, it's been like a year. What does it make you think?
Well, first, I wanted to kind of circle back to what you said and say like it would be very disingenuous for me to say that privilege wasn't a part of this.
Uh huh.
Like being privileged and having that luxury of generational inheritance and wealth given
Mm-hmm.
by my parents and by my family, it definitely plays a part, and that's something that you recognize. That's something that you should recognize.
Mm-hmm. And
And it's just a
maximize.
matter of, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like if you recognize it and you know um how to optimize it ultimately, like that's something that you should do and that people
Mm-hmm.
in your position would if they could. And it's a matter of how you can make an impact with that decision. You could
Yeah.
talk about, you could go on and on about how you feel about a capitalist society and how that affects it, but ultimately, like, that's how it is, right? Like if you have this, how can you optimize what you have?
Uh-huh.
So that's the first thing, and that's what went into me making this decision. And when I look back, like a year, uh, I remember having this conversation with Domeng, one of our best friends, one of our
Who was
mutual best
also a
friends,
guest on
who
this.
is also a guest. Yes, and I think he did mention it in his podcast too. It's like it was really just a matter of defining my own success.
Uh-huh.
Like, and you also alluded to it earlier, the idea that um people will judge you before because you always see people,
Yeah.
but
You think they're
generally,
always judging you.
but generally, I think it's a factor of when you work and when you start working, you're away from like always seeing the same people in college and what
Uh-huh.
they'd think, so you're a little bit removed from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pandemic comes too, where it's like you're really away from everyone. And it really made me realize, like, what do I really want to do? How do I really want to define that success for myself? And ultimately, I think that people are going to support you. Um you just don't know,
Uh-huh.
or you're just afraid to know how they're going to react, so you assume. So one example was I was so afraid to quit my job because I was just about to get promoted. Like I was literally
Ooh.
actually I was already official, like I wasn't officially promoted,
But
but I
you
was
were
already promoted,
okay.
like told that I was. And I was so scared to quit.
Did
And
it
then
slow
when I
down your
quit,
decision?
it actually, I think it ultimately made me speed up that decision because it was like, wait, do I wanna really commit to this?
Oh, okay. The
Yeah.
decision was clear. The choices were clear.
Yeah, and it was crazy because these were mentors of mine that I had to say that I was going to resign. People who have impacted
Yeah.
my life. Shout out to Jay Ann and Bea if they if they listen to this. But
Mm-hmm.
they really impacted my life so much that I wanted to stay for them, and yet parang I had to tell them.
Yeah.
Even my other bosses that are also great to me. Um, um, I had to tell them. And literally every single one of them was like, if
We're
you're
so
gonna do
happy.
this for sports, do it. Like
That's great,
just
man.
do it. And that's when I was like, wow, like people really care about you. People
Yeah.
really will want it. And I had another boss, Melvin, if he listens, he's gonna um he told me straight up, like, if I were as basically privileged as you at your part, at
I'd go for it.
that part of my life, I'd do that too.
Yeah.
So do it.
Yeah. But
So yeah.
I think though that the aspect that you mentioned, that people really support you, I think that it has to start though with you. It has to start with you believing in yourself, and because
Mhm.
it's always nice if you hear someone do something out of the ordinary. Like if we have a friend who says, I'm gonna study to become an astronaut, like that's like, whoa, solid, do that. But if
Yeah, yeah.
he's not sure about it, like it's not enough to rely on the support of others. Like I think like it has to start with you, that you have to really believe it, and
Yeah.
that's
What
something you
I'd
did.
say from my standpoint on that is, I think I always kind of believed in myself, but then and this is what I'd say to you and to all of our friends and to all the people that have like I've crossed paths with in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though I kind of knew I had this like special passion for sports and like it was different from most people, I didn't think it was a possibility, and two, I just thought, now okay, but I might just be a regular at it. But it was through, since grade school, like random people would go up to me and talk about basketball or talk about the
Uh-huh.
NBA, like people I don't talk to. Or someone in college would walk up to me in a coffee bean and I don't talk to that person, and that person would just be like, oh, by the way, I read your article, I really liked it, something like
Uh-huh.
that. Those types of
Mm.
affirmations were what ended up and ultimately led me to being like, I can be this good. Like you can believe in yourself for sure, but you kind of need that affirmation. And
There you go.
ultimately the biggest affirmation for me was getting accepted to Northwestern. Like that was it. Like when I got in, I was like, yo, okay, you can do this shit.
I have a shot.
Sorry.
That's nice. That's nice. It's the opinions of other people. Like, I think there's always this narrative, this struggle and effort to go away from caring about what other people think. Like it's sort of human nature. Na I always worry about what other people think,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's human nature to
It
think about what other people think, and you can use it
I
to your
agree.
advantage in the sense that I'm guessing when you correct me if you're wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. Like in those months where you were thinking about, am I really gonna go for this? Am I gonna leave my family, the country? I'm gonna pursue this, and you look back at your life, and then were you like, is it because like you were reminded about, oh yeah, yung nga, this random batchmate told me this, or oh, I got this, we had this talk, and yeah, like it's those, they kind of served as building blocks to ultimately
That's a
make
great,
you parang believe in yourself.
and that's like over decades, like the two, like I'm 25, that's
Yeah.
literally over the last decade and a half of my life that built up to this moment.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
I just
so
watched, sorry,
go
last
ahead,
night
go
I
ahead.
just watched this. Do you know the movie Rocket Man?
Yes,
The one
I
that,
saw you
have
watch
you
that and I was going to reply to you. I said that's a
it-
great
it's a
film.
great movie. But the thing though that I have to disagree with the story of Elton John. Like if you guys haven't watched it, but it's the story of Elton John, how he became the success he is, and there's so many challenges he went through. Like family life was really, really bad. He didn't really have any friends. Like, it was a recipe for disaster. But he still became successful. Now, I see this type of story so many times where against all odds, the hero prevails. Like, wala. I watched an interview recently. Like, he's 70s already, and he was saying that he doesn't know why he's so good at it. Like, he just hears the music. He can't explain it. It's a God-given gift.
Mhm.
But if I think I was growing up with that sense of what is my Elton John music, diba? What is my prowess? Like, I can kind of play basketball. I like to talk. I like to dance. Like, these are things that, but there was never that clear cut na, this is what you are meant to do. Like, Elton John in front of a piano as a kid, you'd be like, this guy, you better fucking play the piano or else sayang yung buhay mo. But I think the struggle is, and I think that I want to ask you how else did you get to make this a decision this big? Because even if we're 25 now, anything can change, but to make that decision, even if we're young, is already a huge deal. And I want to get to understand more. How do you get to that? Because it's not, I think reality is, it's not, we don't have that one thing on the part. Oh my God, I'm so good at this. It's so easy to see. You have to analyze how you have participated in school, how you like, what makes you happy,
Yeah.
how you deal with the people around you, who you surround yourself with. So how else, if you can remember, the like, how else did you ultimately know enough at least for you to take this path? That was a long monologue.
No.
Go lang.
I super everything was coming to my mind when you were saying that.
Uh-huh.
So I always say like there's a mix of idealism and pragmatism that takes place when you have to make a decision. When
Please
I had to make
expound.
this decision. So you know me, like for most of college I sang, right? That was like music was something that I did a lot. And I
Because
got a lot of
chicks. I'm just kidding. You love music
well, real
regardless.
talk.
But
No, but
it helped with
prag
dancing also. I mean,
so you get it. I've been
yeah.
with Joe with the last few days. Like we get it.
You get
But
it. You get it.
no, but really like I got a lot of praise for doing music, but I was also pragmatic enough to understand like that wasn't going to be like I wasn't exceptional there. Like I wasn't going to make it a career. The reason I mentioned that is I always ask this question to most people, and you can answer it if you want as well after I talk. I ask if everything were controlled, if all factors were controlled, skill, money, privilege, everything, what would you want to do with your life? And my answer is always theater performer.
Until now.
Like that's my answer. Yeah, until now. But I recognize that I wasn't given that skill. But what did I get from that? I recognize that what I really liked doing was being able to convey and something to people, give them this certain emotion and convey something that I can communicate. And like have an audience. That's what journalism gives me. But it's just a more pragmatic option that's like one or two steps down from where I really my 100% life goal.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that I didn't feel that in marketing. I didn't feel that. And now I have other reasons to want to be a journalist. Like I really want to cover women's sports. I really want to push those passions, And when I saw those different parang forms of meaning, and found the pragmatic side of it and found like what I really wanted to do based on that question I just asked you, um, parang it kind of made things easier. But to kind of put the cherry on top of that, it's still really scary. Like, I'm still in a position where it's like journalism in one of the best schools in the US, and they're still telling you like, hey, like you're not assured of a job right after this. Like you have to work hard. And some people end up going back into marketing and something like that. So ultimately, like we are all afraid of what's uncertain. But it was just for me, it's like I don't want to see myself in 20 or 30 years not taking a risk that I could afford to take.
At least you tried.
Yeah. But ultimately, it was really more of the like mixing idealism with pragmatism.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up again. I was just gonna say, if anybody there is listening who is like me, pragmatic, I've heard this word. I just checked the dictionary. It's an adjective. Which means dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than besides it means you're being realistic. And I think that's something that's
practical.
There's two things. The first one I was gonna say, when you mentioned the women's, you want to get into women's sports. this is like a newfound passion and interest in yours that you didn't know you had before you thought of taking this journalism path. Am I correct?
I'd say it was like built down there, but like
Uh-huh.
because I covered women's sports in the Philippines, but
Yeah.
when I came here and I saw like how much more opportunity there is, how much growth there is, like
Oh,
opening
emerging
yourself to new
market.
horizons. Yeah, opening
Yeah.
yourself to new horizons. It really, because they don't cover women's sports in the Philippines much, except for volleyball.
Hmm.
And like but I had so much respect for women's sports because I covered sports and I have two sisters who are more athletic than me. So so I'm there, I'm like, why do people not pay attention to this? And now that I'm here and I
Right.
get to watch the Chicago Sky, who are in the WNBA finals right now,
Did you watch? Are you watching the
I'm gonna
finals?
watch them win the championship in 3 hours. Um,
Wow! What a
no, I'm
wow!
not gonna watch
Okay.
live. I'm not gonna watch live. Sorry,
Ah,
I'm gonna watch them on TV.
okay,
It's
okay,
too
okay.
expensive. It's too expensive.
Yung I was
Um,
about to ask.
no, but no, I'm gonna watch them win, and it's just like you know, um, there's so much opportunity here. There's
Yeah.
so much like I don't understand why people don't cover this, and there's so much reason to
Uh-huh.
care. So,
That's nice.
but I get to watch them on ESPN. Like I get to watch them on national TV
Hmm.
when in the Philippines, like they don't show any of that.
Yeah.
So if I can move that to the Philippines, then cool. But ultimately, I want to help that, and I wouldn't have discovered that, like this, passion that's been down here if it wasn't for, me being more exposed to it
Yeah.
and taking the risk to come here.
Yeah. I brought that up because I wanna touch on the point how when it comes to following your dream, I think I relate to that. Like with how I end up in podcasting. Like, I started with dancing and then then
Yeah,
it sort of translated to hosting, and then now I'm in podcasting. Like it's when you stop doing one thing, you take on this new skill or this new job, it doesn't mean you're changing dreams. It's just you're kind of like fine tuning it, and you're like, wait, what is it I really like about this one activity? And it's
yeah,
nice because this whole women's, like, you know what? I don't want to jinx it, but what if you become like in the NBA there's Doris Burke, and you can be the Colin Sag
yeah,
of the women's sports.
yeah.
Like that's a dream. That's totally that. Like if you think Colin, oh, this women's sports guy, but you go back to that first dream you had, which was theater performer. Like it's so different, but it's through that journey of trying out the theater job, that theater dream, and being okay, dito para sa akin. But what is it about that I love? Went to journalism, and then you find these different, like, you end as in, I like to relate it to love life, for example. I'm a believer that you can have many soulmates. Like there's not just one person destined for you. In the same way in a
Yeah,
job, like you can be totally successful and happy in one job, but it's a different type of success and happiness if you
yeah,
try out this other job.
yeah. And to that point, like I wanted to do theater because I could have made people happy. I could have, made people like inspired people to be theater performers, to sing, to give,
Mm-hmm.
this entertainment. And then, but that's gonna be kind of just altered to I can raise, basketball. I can
Uh-huh.
raise Filipino sports. I can raise women's sports in some type of way. You just have to find it, and it's going to like yun nga, you can look back. It's something that you can look back on in 20 or 30 years and be like, yo, because what did, like, just ask yourself what you wanted to do 5 years ago. Like, was it
Yeah.
was it different? But you could still figure out something.
Yeah.
And it I think it's just more like not getting stuck, and not being afraid to try, if with the caveat that
You
you have the
can
privilege to and that you can afford
Yeah,
to.
you can afford. Yeah, yeah. It goes down to that. And one thing I want to touch on that is that I grew up also. I would say in Metro Manila, of a privileged background. I'm blessed with what I have, but a lot of times I feel guilty because if you talk about privilege, it's always like a something I don't deserve this. I was just born in this family. Like I didn't work for what
Yeah,
my parents accumulated through the decades, diba? But
yeah,
if you're in that situation, like this is why I really look up to yung mga children of business owners who still do their own thing, but
yeah,
parang
for
they
sure.
still kind of it's you can see that, oh, you're doing this because your parents kind of did this thing. Like my example is Lanstan, our batchmate. His parents own a furniture company, and he was working with that company with Las Palmas. And I would imagine, like, seeing him in college, I was thinking like, oh, he's probably gonna like take over the company, or just work there. What he did is he made his own company that is like now it's more in design, but it started off as furniture,
Yeah.
and it's like this dream. Like it's there's not just one thing you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I wanted
And
to ask. Sorry, go ahead. Before I ask.
for me, it's also just like I won't even stray far away from sports. Like look at LeBron. Like
Mhm.
he's built made millions, billions of dollars, and he has like what he's doing is he's gonna make a school because ultimately it's like I've generated this money, I've set my family up, but what am I gonna do now? Like how am I gonna give back?
Mhm.
Helping out HBCU. Yesterday I was watching a video of Donovan Mitchell, and it was a GQ video about how he spent his first $1 million. The
Okay.
first $1 million he ever made. Only 9% of it, 90,000, did he spend on himself.
Mhm.
The rest, the rest was like half of it was for his family, so
Okay.
generational wealth, and then the others was giving back. So my point lang from that is like you 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 do what you can to set yourself up, and then it's a matter of how you use that moving forward to help other people, help
Mhm.
your family, and all of that.
Yeah. You mentioned how in 20, 30 years, like you want to look back at this moment and be like, you know what, I'm happy I did it. So it could be totally possible that you are doing in 20 years, you'll be doing something so completely different from what you're doing now. Have you accepted the possibility that this whole thing fails? Like, it's not meant for you. You spent a lot of money and time. Like, has that? I'm sorry to bring this up. It's so early
No, no,
in
no, no,
your.
no, no.
It's been a month.
It's a
It's
good
yeah. I wanna.
question.
Buti na din we're friends. Like I don't feel that shy to ask this. So
Oh,
have you asked yourself that?
I think my answer, yeah, I've asked myself that, yes, and um, I would say that I have not fully accepted. Like it would be
Mhm.
disingenuous for me to say that I've accepted that. Like for me to be like, oh, like 1 month in, like, oh yeah, this isn't gonna work, like
Mhm.
or like this might not work. But at the same time, it would. I don't think I'm going to be like so. So one of the pragmatic ways I thought about it was I have a management background and I worked at a big American company, right? So if worst comes to worst, I have a master's degree from Northwestern and I can go back into marketing. Kind of like what, our friend Joe is doing, which is he wants to do film, but he's still working
He's
within the
doing
health sector
health.
because he
Yeah.
has a health science degree.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I can do that's the pragmatic way. Now, your question though is more of just like, will I be satisfied or happy with myself in 20 to 30 years? I don't
It's
know.
kind of
Like
hard to
it's
doubt.
it's
Yeah.
tough for me to say. But again, it's like the uncertainty is what we're all afraid of. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more of like kind of embracing that and just being like, we'll see how it goes. But
Yeah.
I'd rather, have tried than have not
Yeah.
tried. And
Ooh.
if the worst case is that it doesn't work out for me, I'm like it's giving my kids that chance to do that. Like my dad, the reason why he's so happy about me doing this is because my dad grew up in the province and
Uh-huh.
he wanted to do theater. He wanted to
Oh.
be an architect. He wanted to do these artsy stuff. And he couldn't because he needed to make money. He became an accountant. He
Uh-huh.
gave me the opportunity ultimately to be able to do this. And that's why he's like, go do what you want to do. And that's ultimately how I guess I'll justify it in the end if I'm unable to succeed, like get to succeed in
Yeah.
this field.
Like you got to try for both of you.
Yeah, and ultimately, like in the US, like if I'm not able to succeed at least like in
In the
journalism, like I can
uh
make money easier. Like I'm assured of being able to just be like I can live middle
there are other
class and
ways.
be fine
There are other
and
ways.
be able to send my kids to school and all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
When we talk about success stories like Steve Jobs, but they dropped out of college. Like it sounds so sexy that I can drop out of college kasi nagawa naman ni Steve Jobs eh. But actually the more practical way is to do the less risky one, which is whatever you have like some expertise in or whatever you have, that use that, do it, and then use it to make money. And then your other time, that's where you test out this dream. That's where you test out the so when it comes to like very out of the ordinary types of jobs and diba? Those careers. Like it's kind of hard to just jump into it all out na agad eh. Like it would make sense for you to
Yeah.
be able to still be comfortable and like, okay, I still am secure with my finances, with the buying the things I need to buy, and I get to test this thing on the side.
Yeah, and I'll give you like a journalistic example for like
Uh-huh.
what you're basically trying to say, because I also believe that that idea of like is very romanticized. The idea of either you drop out of school or oh, you don't technically need to study this. They tell journalists like only 50% of you, like you don't necessarily need to go to journalism school, which is
Mhm.
sort of true. To be a journalist, you don't necessarily need to go
You
to
can
journalism
write if
school.
you know how to write.
Yeah, but here's what I'll tell you: look at ESPN. If they're not a former player, they're
They've
Pablo Torre
studied.
is a Filipino on ESPN. He studied in Harvard. Mina Kimes is a Korean on ESPN. She studied in Yale. Um, Stephen A. Smith, journalism. Um, Max Kellerman, Columbia journalism. Rachel Nichols, Northwestern
Mm.
journalism. Like,
Oh, she's from Northwestern.
yeah. Uh, Greenberg, Mike Greenberg is Northwestern journalism. Like all of these big time ESPN people, they're either former athletes or they studied in some big
Yeah.
school. So it's like, as much as you want to say that you can, and I'm sure you can, like that, there really is a way,
Yeah.
but there also is the more practical way. That's for when you have privilege. Like there
Yeah.
really is that way. So it's just a matter of how you get there, not really the journey anymore.
Yeah.
If you can,
It's like
get it done.
it's like in basketball, you don't need to attend a good college program. And if you know how to play basketball, you know how to play basketball. But if you look at everyone in the NBA, like they're all from they all come like almost all of them come from good programs. Like you,
Hey
I
man,
the, the
don't throw
statist.
shade at Dame.
Oh, hey, but I mean like the fact that
Pete
he,
Weber State.
yeah. But there are those
No, no, I get you.
some of those. But the statistics are there for a reason. Like if you can, if it's in your prowess and your capabilities and your reach, then go take the safe route. That's what I'd say. Go take the safe route.
For sure. Like look at like all the dookies in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Tatum, Zion, Kyrie.
All right. I want to ask naman, what is something that you have discovered and realized that it was only because you were doing it na? Like that's the only time you had, oh my gosh, either good I did this, either bad I did this. Like what comes to the top of your mind?
Well, in terms of like good or bad, I guess no, honestly, the first thing is really just like yo, this is really, I enjoy going to school. Like,
Uh-huh.
dude, like I enjoy going to school. Like, yeah, when have I ever said that in my life? Like I had never enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
going to marketing class. No offense to people who do. Like it's just not ever been mine.
What's
So
different though
to,
now?
okay, so I'm studying, like I have classes where where I'm studying sexism in sports.
Mm-hmm.
I have class where I'm studying the history of discrimination in sports. And for me, it's like I care and I feel like these topics are relevant, things that we've never known. I have classes where our homework is talk to a random person on the street, interview them, and then write a story about them. You don't have, it's not gonna be published, but you have to do that. And or we learn about things like false rape stories that were written, or and why
Okay.
those are so terrible for rape victims who
Mm-hmm.
actually have gone through those things. So I guess my point is just like what I'd say that I've discovered, it's not on the negative side. It's really all on the positive side. And what it is just the power that media has at any level. It can be a
Mm-hmm.
um, 2 million, of something that's viewed by 2 million people on ESPN, or it could be, a podcast. And it has so much value. Like we talk about the difference between saying like racist and something like racial slur. Like what's the difference between those two things?
Okay.
Or calling Donald Trump a liar and what that entails and what that means versus saying what his statements are false. So like the power of those words
Mm.
and how crazy that is in driving narratives and driving
Yeah.
polarization, like it's so huge, especially if you work for like the Wall Street Journal or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's been incredible, to be honest, to see that here. And it's something that I would have never discovered
unless you went there.
And I've only discovered in a month.
Yeah. When you with these lessons that you've learned, and you think about the media climate in the Philippines, are there things that you've realized also? I want to pick your brain on that. Like, are there the wording is very important. Like, you can see the different news stations when they report on, let's say, something about the Dolomite Beach. Like, you can tell that this company, the way they talk about this thing, like the wording is different. When you look at the when you remember the Philippine climate, has there been something that you kind of realized?
So I always go back to sports, because that's really where I specialize on.
Uh-huh.
And I work, I never like really worked as a journalist, but even in my time there, like I'll give this example to you. Like, how you were like saying that you were shy to ask me that question earlier. You would have been shy if I wasn't your friend. You know what I mean? Like in the US, they're gonna ask you that question. It doesn't matter. Like they're just gonna ask you that question because that's journalism. You know what I mean? Like that's just like, you don't be afraid. And in the Philippines, you're always confined because you're scared. And you're scared about the reputation that you're going to have. And that's not to say that there's no politics and none of that here in the US. There is, for sure. ESPN and the NBA work together. They're literally partners. So like ESPN can't throw shade at the NBA. But what I mean to still say is that there's still a level of like, we can talk to you. And that's something that in being in sports media in the Philippines, even at the capacity that I was in, I couldn't do that. I couldn't say that, I'll tell you, like, what the PBA is doing is trash. Like, why everyone's leaving for the Japan B League. Like, nobody's legit reporting on that. Like, how many people are legitimately writing how huge that is? No one, because no one has the guts to do that. So like, and the thing is, it's not just the reporters that don't have the guts to do that. It's like, are the players gonna talk about it? Because they're too afraid because of the politics involved too.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people that they're not gonna say on record, so it's like, there's no point.
With this whole Philippine, I want to talk about that also. In a sense, although you're not playing the sport, you're writing about sports. You're writing about sports, and you also took your talents, overseas. But here it's more. I mean, it's not. I can't think on the top of my head. I can't think of the best sports journalism school, if any, here in the Philippines, and it's just very clear that it's like saying, if you want to play basketball, the basketball courts aren't nice in the Philippines. Like, it's all cement and outdoor. It's in the States where they have nice wooden indoor courts. It's like that. So it's clear, it's easy. But there are a lot of Filipinos. It started with Thirdy. If I'm not mistaken, is he the first one that went to the B League in Japan? And then now other players are going. I know that you have. I'm not gonna ask you to divulge your sources, but I know that you know stuff and you are interested in these stuff. So can you describe it for the average basketball fan who probably watches NBA, UAAP, gets to see some PBA stuff, but we don't really follow it. Like, I still understand until now, don't really understand how there's so many cups, and sometimes like, oh, but this one, like, the foreigners can play here, this one you can't, and then oh, they're categorized by who owns the companies. Like, I don't know, but with the whole Filipinos leaving the country, playing abroad, what does that mean?
It's literally just a publicized version of OFWs. Like, why do OFWs leave the country?
That's right. That's like OFWs.
It's really just that. Like, I think I was on my group chat. I kind of just skimmed through it, but I think there was a report. I don't want to super verify this, but it was something about how like Japeth Aguilar is being offered. I literally skimmed through this just now, but like he's being offered or something, and like it's like ×3 of his salary or something to go to the B League, of his PBA salary. And the fact of the matter is, it's really in large part due to your pay. Like, it's just that labor pay in the Philippines is absolutely trash, and that's not something that like, that's not something that we can just that you can skimp over. Like, it's true. There's a reason why BPOs are huge in the country. Um, and beyond the actual money that you make, it's also the lifestyle and the cost of living. Cost of living in the Philippines way cheaper than in Japan or in the US. That's the counter argument of everyone. I'm telling you right now, I was working for a massive company in the Philippines, and I still could barely survive on my own if I
If you
tried
had to,
with that money. You know what I mean? So it's really just comes down to that, like money and then opportunity, because the B League is going to give them a bigger stage. The B League is going to market them well, and they're sick of politics. They're sick of the politics that come with the PBA. They're sick of all of that stuff. I'll give you an example. The I don't know how much people have talked about like how the PBA was restricting these players from going. I'm not the best at knowing what the rules are now, like how, because Kiefer's there now and stuff. But WNBA players have been playing their off seasons in Europe since the beginning of time. Like since the beginning of the league,
they really play in more than one league.
If you search any WNBA player, like Diana Taurasi, the GOAT, she's gonna have Euro teams on her Wikipedia because they play for Europe teams because their season is only like 3 or 4 months. So they should be allowed to do that. Why doesn't the PBA do that? It's so easy for the PBA to be like, okay, for one season, but they have just the season just keeps going. That's why.
It's going around though.
Yeah, but the fact that they're not doing that or they're not improving their product either, to keep to generate more revenue, to be able to pay the players more. That's another aspect. So there's so many factors, but ultimately for me, it's like this is just a microcosm of labor pay in the Philippines, and it's just that it's finally taking effect to people who actually have a huge public, who are huge public figures.
Yeah, because it's happening in basketball, and we all Filipinos.
This is what happened to nursing, in 20 years ago. You know.
Wow. All right. So anyway, last thing I was gonna say about the whole basketball thing is that that's what, just the fact that no one knows about this, that really shows the power of media and telling stories, that these are stories that aren't being talked about. So that's why we don't know these. Is it in your goal? Is it in your goal? You're studying for just 1 year, right?
1 year, yeah.
And then do you have any idea, like, what steps are you planning to take after?
Yeah, so that's the one that's a little bit vague in my mind still now, because it's been a month. I still, like, I'm talking to the career services of the school this week just to try to get like some perspective of what's next. But I think it's still semi starting from the bottom, semi, like, I don't care if I have to cover some team in like suburban Iowa if it means like getting experience and then hopefully working somewhere else. But I do really have a passion for like my end goal is I want to make an impact either for Filipinos or for women, or either way, like some sort of that. Like I like just seeing stories that can be told. Like, just for example, if the Chicago Sky win the WNBA championship, that's going to be the first time in WNBA history that a married couple is going to win a championship. Their starting backcourt is married. Isn't that insane? Isn't that insane?
Who are these?
This is Courtney Vandersloot and Ali Quigley. Like, isn't that insane? Like, how big is that for like the LGBTQ plus community? Like, that's crazy. That you have a married couple.
Yeah.
But like, is that a story that's widely told? I guess so, from a certain extent, but that's a story that you could definitely tell. Those types of things, if it impacts and can contribute in some aspect, in some way, I'd love to tell those stories. It's just in terms of like the step-by-step method, I'm still just starting, and I'm gonna have to figure that out. But I plan to really like get into it a little bit more soon, especially like reaching out for freelancing opportunities, maybe in the Philippines also, although like I know I'm gonna get paid a lot less.
Yeah. But is it a big goal of yours that you want to come back to the Philippines?
No, to be honest. To be honest, no.
You'll be totally happy.
I would love to
Work for the
make an
NBA.
impact, but still, no, not even for the NBA. Make an impact from here. From the I think you can, like, writing about the Filipinos who are here. You have, we have the number 5 ranked women's golfer in the world right now.
Yeah.
Like, number 5. And like, how many people are paying attention to that? Not a lot. We have boxers here. We have, eventually, hopefully within our lifetime, there's going to be a basketball player here. We have basketball players here and playing in high school. So
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of ways here. TJ Manotok is here. He's one of the legendary sports journalists. He's in
Chicago.
LA. He's
LA.
based in I think San Francisco or LA.
Mm-hmm.
He's like doing like ABS-CBN's chapter for the US. Aaron Ataide is here. Who so there's people who are gonna be here and who can still make an impact for Filipinos. And I also feel like me being here is an opportunity to get Filipinos to know that, like, I want to be able to be like, hey, you guys
I'm a
can come
Filipino.
here and be journalists if you want,
Oh.
and do what you want to do. So I feel like that's another way that I can help too. Just like how Thirdy was able to bring to inspire people to do basketball there. So
Wow.
that's definitely it.
You're the Thirdy Ravena of sports journalism, bro.
Sure.
No, but in this sense, yeah. And that proves a point that you don't need to be in the Philippines to help the Filipino. And just because you're not in the Philippines doesn't mean you're turning your back. Like, you're not just gonna,
for sure.
You know how people say, like, the government loves the OFW, the government loves the OFWs because of the exchanger, because what it does to the exchanger, like, they bring in a buttload of dollars. That's not the only way you can. Everything's so connected there now. Like, you can be working for a Philippine company from there. Like, that is totally.
And
Totally
it's really
possible.
just the power of like interviews, like, and this Zoom calls and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like, if I wanted to write a piece about the Filipinos, like, I just need to contact people and talk to them. Like, I can get into a call with basketball players and talk to them. Something that simple.
Yeah, I want to ask this last few questions.
Go ahead.
You mentioned how you had that talk with Michael last year, and then you left your job. You had that talk. You applied for these schools, and that one school got you, and then you were accepted. When you look at how your life has turned out so far, and as you look forward, when you look back at your life, do you feel like you were predestined to be where you are today, or is it a coincidence? Did you manifest it? Like, when you look at how you've reached where you are today in terms of reaching your goals, finding your career path, are you a believer of things just happening and you don't really have control, or like you really consciously took the steps to be here where you are today?
I think more of the latter. I don't romanticize it to be that way. I'd say that there are definitely things that had to happen in the lore of the world for me to realize that this was how to get here. But if I had to, like, really say, I needed to make this decision. Like, that's how it is. Like, you said it yourself earlier, like, you need to do that. I guess if you made a romantic reference earlier, I'll reference it to love also. Love is a choice. Love is a choice, bro. Like, ultimately it's a choice. So if you made the choice for certain things, now obviously things have to fall into place, just like how in a relationship there has to be timing, there has to be proximity or things to that nature. That's the same thing with this. But I'd say that ultimately what will get you there is you and your own choice and your own commitment and dedication.
But I would say it's a combination. I think it's like, in the same sense, how from the theater dream it kind of translated to now this sports journalism. Like, things are gonna happen around you in the universe, but it's up to you on what you're gonna do with those things that are happening, how you're gonna react to the situations, the decisions that you make. But as a huge part of whatever you're gonna end up doing is because of what's happening in the world right now. Because of COVID, you didn't need to take those tests. Like, things happen. But if it's not like this is not the only choice. If COVID never happened and you'd be pursuing another dream.
Like I'll tell you this, like Micah probably only thought about the sports thing because of COVID. Or I wouldn't know that for sure. Don't quote me. We could ask him. But like it probably stimulated in his mind because
Yeah.
of the thinking he had through COVID. And he wouldn't have told me if it wasn't for that. I wouldn't have known that. And that changed me. But ultimately, I still made the decision to do something from that information. That
Yeah.
first part was, life and the factors that are natural. The second part is me making that decision. So it's like it's really like balancing act.
Yeah, man. Anyway, I want to end with this. Your hoodie. It says Wildcats. Is that your school?
Yeah. This is a Northwestern.
You're the
I'm
Northwestern.
wearing a hoodie now, not necessarily because I wanted to rep Northwestern here. Although Joe would
But
probably be like,
sakto.
"Oh, I'm wearing it because it's like it's like almost single digit degrees na here in
In
terms of
Celsius.
Celsius.
Do you say
So
have you sorry, have
I can
you
speak Fahrenheit now.
Yeah, you can speak Fahrenheit now.
I could speak Fahrenheit now.
Do you speak in feet? What would yards?
Metric system.
What
No
do the
metric
Americans
system.
do?
They speak in feet and miles.
I want to commend you. I wanna say first as a
Thank
friend, I'm
you.
proud of you, and I want to commend you
Thank you.
because to quote one of the most famous, the second most famous Wildcat, Gabriela, you went your own way, man. You went your own way with that. Good job.
Ay.
I want to acknowledge that you said it. I wanna reiterate this one because I really believe it's important. Is that you mentioned that you're scared. You're afraid. Like this thing is you're living alone. You're living alone, right?
I'm living alone, yes.
No family there. Except probably Joe Barabas, probably family now.
Luckily, I have cousins who live like 3 hours away, but
Okay.
still,
Well, yeah. But I mean, if you're in the
yeah.
if you live in Metro Manila alone, and you're like, no, I have a cousin 3 hours away. Like, do you live alone? That's what it means, man. But then anyway, yun, man. I want to thank you again and wish you the best of luck, man. And
And I wish you the best of luck too as you toil through the Philippine struggles with COVID and
dude,
with your podcast
can I say,
like,
man, I'm in a different place now from last year. Like a lot of it is like good, like mentally and like discover myself more again. But I'm also realizing that, damn, man, this country, like
it's tough,
there's
bro.
a lot, there's a lot
But what
going
I'd
on.
say is that I've had conversations with a lot of Americans about like the vaccine and why, like how bad it is that it's so widely available here and that
What?
they're just not distributing it in other
Yeah,
countries. Well, it's such a selfish thing, and even them, they're just like, you guys must hate us, like that.
because
Like there are people
it's
who are
so hard
saying
for
that
us to
stuff.
get, and then
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure, for
man.
sure,
I
dude. You
think
don't
I
understand. Like
uh huh.
it's normal here. Like
What
the
do you mean?
only thing that's not normal is that we wear masks indoors. But like it's normal. Like I walk around, I go outside every day. I walk around without a mask outside. Like I go to the supermarket all the time. Like it's
But is it
as in the
safer?
first because 99.99% of people who are in the hospitals are unvaccinated. Like that's basically negligible. And if you're afraid of that 0.000, I don't make it political, but like if you're afraid of that, that's the same as like the flu or the pneumonia. Like
It's
that's
already reached the point like that in the
people are
states.
still gonna die from the flu or pneumonia.
Yeah,
A lot of people are still dying, but they're unvaccinated. Like
yeah.
that's just it. So that's why I'm not afraid. I've been to sporting events
Uh
and
huh.
whatever, and like it sucks when people aren't wearing masks indoors. Like it's disrespectful, but I'm
Yeah.
not afraid of it anymore.
Uh huh.
um I've gotten COVID tested after being in like sporting events, and I'm like negative. So it's
Yeah.
like it's really the vaccine really works. Really works.
I'm pretty
And
sure.
it's just a matter of the politics here in the US and then the
Yeah.
inability to bring it to third world countries.
Yeah, that's a consolation I have when I think of like that. Like, of course, I've had those thoughts. Like, what it would it be like if I moved, or when I think of the states or something. But what has helped me be okay with this, if the Philippines the situation is everywhere. There's some crazy shit happening everywhere. Like,
There is.
okay, in the states, mas okay yung I mean things work. Public transportation's better, like opportunities, but People are different, and I feel like this. You just gotta water the grass where you're standing, and
Oh.
that's the best that we can do, man. Anything else you wanted to add, man? In this journey that you are in, and the point that you are in right now, we are recording this now. It's October 8th. Well, October 17th. I'd still say October 17th, 2021.
It's very much October 17 where I'm at.
Yeah. Any last thing you're gonna say? Any last thoughts that you wanna put out in the ether? And if you look at this conversation again years after, as a, I don't know, I'm gonna say as a blank. I'm not gonna jinx it. What do you want to say?
Well, to be honest, it's really just like like you take your shot. Like if you can, like take your shot. That's really it. Like I've learned throughout this last month that people freaking just cold call whoever to get what they want, or email, and it'll happen. So don't, like, we were very, very conservative back home, and there's a reason for that. There's good for that, but I'm happy that I took my shot. Whatever happens, at least I took it. And I think that more people should be encouraged to try to take their shot. Like, I've always admired that you've tried to push for what you wanted to do, and you're doing it well. So I think that that's part of why I decided to do that also, that I could see people like you doing what you want to do. So I think that take your shot, but also do it with some form of pragmatism, but
Yeah.
take your shot.
All right, man. No, that's it. Thanks for guessing again here, and we look forward to the next conversation. Goodbye.
Dude, I'm really happy we got to catch up through this.